Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. She is somebody that helps many deal with grief. And many of us, and I always say this because it's the first thing that pops in many of our minds, the passing of somebody you're close to. There's grief involved in that. But there's grief in many things in our lives that we might not even realize and might not even realize that we are grieving or dealing with grief. We're going to talk about that today. One of those things is connected to our children who are still here, but life changes, empty nest situations, on and on and on. She has created a wonderful organization and practice called the National Grief Support Center.com. And she is back with us. Julie Ehlers is on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I was thinking earlier today, which I mentioned to you just before the show, about grief and connection to our kids and what we go through when they leave the house to go to college or they want to get their own apartment for the first time. And while we might be ready for that intellectually, and we think this is the next stage that they go through and that we're going to go through, you just don't know how that's going to hit you. And it can really hit the gut on levels of sadness and, all of the grief reactions, your emotions to the loss of having your child with you in the family home. So, I recently went through a move and was leaving my adult daughter where she's living to another location. And that just really struck me. And I was grieving when I reflect back. I mean, I did realize it when I was like bawling my eyes out, packing up stuff and asking her if she wanted things from her childhood that I still had. And we were sorting, basically. But it was a sad and joyous time. I couldn't wait to move. And at the same time, I was sad because I was leaving her. But then when I reflected more, I thought, I'm not leaving her, you know. She's always my child. We're only a phone call and a flight away. Um, and that helped. That helped. And it also helps to know that they don't need us the same way that they needed us when they were young. And we have to make that shift. It's a huge paradigm shift for everyone, fathers and mothers alike. And it's different for everyone. We express it differently. But for me, it was a lot of tears, um, and I did share with her how I felt. She walked in on it one day, so there was that.
Yeah, it's amazing how we're so connected with technology now. Wonderful, wonderful,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, um, but we still feel disconnected sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, do you think she feels a lot of the same things that you were thinking?
Yes, I do. She handles it differently.
Right.
She wants to present that because she's an adult and trying to be independent of me, she's really trying to show up responsibly and everything's great, mom. I'm sure she has days
Oh yeah.
where
Deep inside, she's thinking, "I need my mommy." I mean, mommy. I
exactly,
mean, mommy.
yes.
But they're not going to admit that.
No, no.
Mm.
But I know it from like I got a phone call yesterday. I missed the call and I got a text and then I got a heart on the text. That never happens. So I think somebody's feeling it and she's, wanting that connection. So we'll connect sometime today.
Hmm.
But it's a beautiful thing to move into the adulthood phase with them, even though it's also very sad because we see them using everything we've taught them and did not know that we taught them.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. It's a beautiful thing. And it makes me happy, happy, happy. And then it's, I think that tangible, tactile connection that we have in the home, it's just more intimate. You know, you get up in the morning, Mommy, what's for breakfast? I want pancakes. I want cereal, these sorts of things. They're very intimate and you get to know what they mean to the kids. Like sometimes you might have a child who just loves mom to make a homemade breakfast. So those are really special times that you spend with your kids. And, they're not asking you for homemade breakfast anymore. You
Mm.
get up and you're having coffee and they're
Yep.
not there. So
But it's
there is,
interesting the parallels here when we talk about this is grieving in many regards, that the change. Um, if you compare it to another situation, even the passing of someone,
Mhm.
there's a change going on there.
Yes, there is.
There's guilt in that
Yes.
situation. There's guilt with your kids. You could be thinking, I should have done this when they were little. I should have appreciated it more. I should have complained every time I had to take them to cheerleading. I wanted to be somewhere else or been on that field, at 6 a.m. when it was 40 degrees out.
Oh, yeah.
All of those, it's guilt. And it's the same, but it's not, but it is with the
Hmm.
passing of someone.
It is. It's very much the same. It's just a different person and they happen to be here.
Yeah,
And and then you work through figuring out where your new connection is and you become this new person to your child and you to them in their eyes. I mean, you're always going to be the mom or the dad. That's going to be there. Um, and, they might break down and say, Mommy, I need you type thing at 30. Who knows? She's 20. And,
sure.
she's not doing that right now. But if she did need me, I'd be on the next plane. And, of course, we'd do anything for them.
But it's interesting when it's kids and even that age, they want to show you now they're an adult,
Mhm.
but deep down inside, they're still kids.
They are still
If you
kids.
look, I think they say you're still a kid. You're still developing until you're at least 26.
Yes.
But they want to, put on this facade or just, make you feel like, I got this. I'm an adult now, and you got to let them go and do their thing. But it still is grieving involved in it. But I believe that many of us as parents, and this is just one situation, whether it's a parental situation or whatever, it's grieving. I
It
don't
is.
believe we see it that way.
No, we don't. I don't think that the only time that I think that people really acknowledge the fact that they're grieving is when they've lost a spouse, a child to death. Um, and even in divorce, I don't think that people really recognize the levels of grief that they're experiencing with so many different layers of a divorce.
Yes.
You know,
Add the kids to it. You got that layer. You've
yes,
got, animosity.
huge.
You've got, assets and,
Yes.
how could they do this? And all the layer after layer after layer after layer. We're not minimizing the passing of somebody and the grieving there at
No,
all. This is just a different type of grieving.
right, exactly. So it's a different type because the kids are there, the ex is there, and we still have to interact having these feelings. So then we're thinking we have to manage our feelings. Or if we don't manage our feelings well one day and we walk away from a situation we wish that we handled differently, we think, ugh, you know, and now I have to deal with this emotion,
Mm,
right? And
mm.
that's tough. That's really tough on top of the sadness of the loss of a relationship. We might not feel sad. Sometimes there's a lot of animosity with the kids too. Sometimes there's been a tough teenage years and um, tough communication, and nobody's done it well. And the kids go off and they're upset. Or the parent leaves and they're upset. It's a very, very different grieving. And I think that it takes a lot of navigation. I think that um, that's a really big time to reach out, whether or not it's a divorce or the empty nest syndrome.
Mm.
The most common way of describing it. But there's so many different stages in a child's life when they're letting go of you, and we can all reflect on those when they learn how to ride that bike. And they go up to Johnny's house and they're gone for an entire day. And then you're mad at them because they didn't let you know they were going to be at Johnny's house all day and you worried, right? But they're just doing their life. They're just in the moment on the bike, pedaling away. Same thing
Yeah.
in a car, driving away. So they do it throughout their journey of growing up. They're separating, they're getting a group of friends, talking to their friends about life situations, not just mom and dad. And then we worry about the advice they're getting from others.
I'm seeing a common thread here, and I want to throw this to you, Julie. Um, we don't like we all pilot with fear in everything,
Hmm.
whether you want to admit it or
Hmm.
not. We all have fears, different ones.
Hmm.
Fear of the unknown being one of them.
Hmm. Hmm.
So when it's your kid's situation, whether your kid's riding up the block to Johnny's house, or you're moving and your child is in another state, do you think it's also a fear of not knowing how you're going to feel and how to process that, or knowing how it's going to go? Where, now your kid's up the street at Johnny's house, that they just rode their bike for the first time. Is this going to become a habit? Will my kid not talk to me? My kid's 10, it's at
Hmm.
Johnny's house, but I'm not going to talk to him anymore because they're at Johnny's. They don't need me anymore. How am I going to feel about that? Oh my God, fear, fear, fear.
Hmm.
Do you think that's a lot of what's going on here within the grieving, mixed in as part
Oh,
of the
sure.
ingredient?
Oh, sure.
And just makes it more
Yes.
challenging.
Yeah. And everybody has their fears as parents. I mean, it's so big um, because the world is, unknown, uncertain. There's so many different factors, more so today than there were when we were growing up, that we know of. And so people worry more, people get all up in their stuff more, and it is fear. It's I think it's primarily a fear of the unknown, and uncertainty isn't easy to sit with. There's a lot of people who talk about uncertainty and
Mm, mm.
learning how to sit with it. Not easy.
Oh,
No matter who is providing the meditation or the counseling regarding it, it's a really tough thing to internalize and integrate into our
yeah.
worlds.
And now, if it's the passing of someone, it's the same, much of the same feeling of not knowing how you're going to feel. What am I
Right.
going to feel
Or
like? What about, I passed by that restaurant, uh, and then I'm going to have that feeling of sadness again, and those memories are going to
yes,
flood back, and
yes,
and I don't know how I'm going to react and if I really want to feel that again. But I do want to feel that again because I want to feel their memory. All these thoughts come into our
right.
heads.
When my partner passed 12 years ago, the day after, I was a mess. I mean, just a mess. And, couldn't get off the couch. I was having physical reaction to
Sure.
the loss along with the emotional. And I felt very sick. And I said to myself, not to anyone there, which I could have, my sister was there. Um, but I said to myself, I just so don't want to deal with this. I so don't want to go through this. Oh my God, this is so big. I'm going to have to compartmentalize all over the place. And, because I had my young daughter at the time, and, I knew I would be going back to work after I was able to use family leave for that. But, it's all of us do it differently. Some people, I think a lot of people think like I did, I don't want to deal with this. And it's the last thing I want to be going through again in my life because I had obviously gone through some losses that I had talked about previously. And it took me it took me some time. I
Mm.
had to give myself grace. Then I started switching that up. You need to have, better self-talk and give yourself some grace.
Would you say, Julie, that that experience taught you a lot about yourself?
Oh yeah. It taught me a lot about myself that I was like with because there was a terminal illness and I was walking that line of that. I knew what was going to happen, but it doesn't change then what happens. You can't anticipate how you're going to react to it. You might think, I've done this before, I know this rodeo. No, you don't.
Mm.
It's
Hmm.
different. It's different in every situation and with every person that you lose along the way. So, and this was just ginormous with lack of better way of saying it. It was huge. And I think it is for everyone. Um, People who have been with people through illnesses, through the joys of life, the tragedies of life, and then they die. That is just so you learn a lot about yourself where you're at, and then you're learning a lot about yourself as you move along in your grief because you are a changing human being during that time frame. And and I think that we're all evolving always with all the different experiences that we have. But grief just sometimes slaps you in the head and takes you to your knees. And
Hmm.
in those moments, you learn that you can survive the worst of the worst. I woke up again today. Okay, I'm good. That's good. I feel hungry. Okay, I'm going to eat. Oh, it's a beautiful day. Maybe I'll go on a walk. These are things that still go on, even in the depths of your pain, because those are things that you did prior to the depths of the pain that you're now in. So you had goodness, and those things come back to you in different ways through your grief. You might not feel like you're ever going to see that again or feel it, but it's there. And joy and happiness and gleefulness, that all exists with the pain of the loss. You could be in tears one minute and laughing with a friend the next. So it doesn't feel that way though when you're on your knees.
Did it feel like life was going on, and there was anticipation of change coming?
Right.
When if the change actually came, did you feel like there's a mountain in front of me? All of a sudden, right
Oh
there.
yeah, I was digging out.
How am I going to get over the mountain? Like
I
it's like
had to kind of dig through. I don't think I climbed it. I think that I dug through.
with a spoon.
Yeah, and yeah, and it takes a long time. I mean, you can think that you're going in there with whatever those big tractor trailer things are that haul out.
Payloader and
Yes,
no,
I'm
it's like one
gonna
spoon
take
at a
that
time.
out. No, it's
No,
just this little thing.
yeah. Did you ever think about this? And I'm sure, I've even pondered this with those in my life that I've lost. Expected terminal illness or sudden. If it was the other way around, would that be better? Have you ever thought about that? Just, and has anybody ever talked to you about that in their situation?
Sure. This has come up a lot in
I'm sure. I'm
conversations,
sure.
and it's something that we don't, I mean, I have not experienced, it's not been my experience in my life to have somebody just drop dead or wake up next to them and they've passed. I know I've worked with a lot of people where that's happened. And it's awful, mostly because they're feeling like they didn't get to talk to them or work through things that were still on the table for them at the moment. Let's say they had an argument the night before and the couple's in bed sleeping and one of the two of them passes away. And it's unresolved business that took place before they went to bed. And they don't get to resolve it and may feel very badly about something they said.
Hmm.
And so there's that. And that can be worked through. It's not easy to have to go back to that and work through that with a practitioner. I mean, you have to do that with somebody else. You can't do that on your own. Um,
Hmm.
so, and I think that when you know someone is going to die, when I knew my father was going to die, he had COPD, so he was having a lot of complications, and the doctors were very frank about, whether or not he'd make it through, both with him and with us. So, there were times when I felt called to tell him more. I needed to say more to my dad. And so I felt very fortunate when he passed that I got to say everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
he was a generous listener, and I loved that. I always loved that about my dad. He was huge emotional support in my life, and I miss that today. Um,
Are you still grieving his passing?
Not in the way that I was,
No, definitely not. Yeah.
but there are times like I just felt that, and you saw that.
But
I just felt it.
deep down inside, do you think there's a little piece of you that will always grieve?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that people need to understand that it doesn't all go away. You still have feelings about people that you knew throughout your lifetime that raised you. And likewise, if they were alive and if you had passed, they would still have feelings for you. My mother lost her son 30 years ago. And she said she can say today, without breaking down, I'm so grateful I had him for the 32 years. But you could never say that to somebody who just lost their son. Like, aren't you grateful you had him for this long? Oh my God, I just lost my son. That's not a thing to say.
Yeah.
So there are times, I've just wove that in to one of those topics that we've talked a lot about. But my mom still remembers her baby boy
Mm.
and she can well up with those memories of when her son was little and as he grew as a man and and then as he left. Um, so she's still grieving her parents. I still miss my grandparents, her parents.
Sure.
And
It,
that was, I don't know, 5, 7 years ago
it
they
never goes
passed.
away. And that's the
No.
point here. We grieve. I had a reminder of my dad yesterday. Didn't have a great
Mm,
relationship with him. He wasn't really there for me. I was, I hated this term, fatherless boy, when I was a
yeah.
kid. So I'm transparent here. And he
Hmm.
he just dropped, didn't get to talk with him or anything, when I was 21. Driving yesterday, fundraiser, Big Brothers, Big
Okay.
Sisters,
Hmm.
volunteer to help with a group.
Hmm.
And I'm driving there and I'm driving there and I'm on the, parkway and I look up and I'm like, didn't even occur to me that there was a sign for the town he lived in.
Mm.
Make the turn 2 miles up. I didn't even think of it. I'm just doing my thing, driving there. It's in a part of where about maybe a 40-minute drive from here. And I
Hmm.
was like, wow, kind of full circle,
Right, right.
I'm helping others, you
Hmm.
know, but it was a part of grieving. I was thinking like, wow, yeah,
Hmm.
it's almost like the universe was saying, you need a reminder. In a
Yes,
good
and
way.
this
In a
is
good
in a
way.
good way, and this is what you are doing, to give it forward.
Yeah.
Because you know what it's like to not have a dad present regularly growing up. Then you know the sadness of never being able to repair that because he passed when you were still very young.
Sure.
And so, you're giving it back by being a part of Brothers and or uh,
Big Brothers, right?
Big Brothers. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was
Um,
a reminder that it never goes away,
yeah.
and I don't mean this in a negative way. I wasn't like, negative in seeing it was memories. It was,
Yes.
and good memories.
Yeah.
Yeah. It,
And I want to say that it is okay to have, negative thoughts about grief and about our feelings, and wanting them to go away. And, a lot of people really try and push that stuff away, but you really can't. It's super important to when it comes, let it be.
it's all part of
Just
it, right?
yes.
Mm.
Yes. And there are times where, when you thought about your dad at that exit, wow, I wasn't expecting that. Okay. Then you just keep driving and you go to your event.
But I look at it in a different way. It was more of a reminder. It wasn't
Mm,
there's a reason for everything. That's my belief. There are no
hmm.
coincidences. There are coincidental incidents, and I bet that was one of them. It could have been
Yes.
on the other side of where I live. 40 minutes the other way. It happened to be this way.
Hmm.
And maybe it was him saying, whatever.
Hi,
Best way.
son.
Yeah.
Yes. Hmm.
Julie, how do we find you?
720-480-3317. Call me directly. You can also reach me at the National Grief Support Center.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Nobody does what you do the way you do it.
Mm,
With compassion, love, understanding. I appreciate your transparency. And whenever we get together, thank you.
thank you.
We'll catch up next time. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.